My name is Madeline Harper. I'm 32 years old, and I learned something brutal about love the moment I realized a surprise can be a weapon when it's built on silence. If you'd asked me a month ago what I was proudest of, I would have told you the same thing I told everyone, usually with a smile that tried not to look like bragging. My house. A 4-bedroom place with a wide driveway and a little patch of backyard that turns gold in late afternoon light. Nothing mansion level, but it was mine, paid off. 3 years ago, I made the last payment after grinding as a software engineer since I was 22. No inheritance, no family bailout, no secret trust fund. Just 10 years of living like I was still in college, meal prepping, driving the same car, saying no to trips, saying no to upgrades, saying no to anything that didn't move me closer to owned outright. I used to stand in my living room at night sometimes, lights off, just listening to the quiet, the kind of quiet you earn. And then I met Ethan Caldwell. He was 29, funny in that disarming way, like he could make a cashier laugh without trying. He worked as a dental hygienist, which meant he had this steady, tidy confidence about him, like his life came with built-in structure. He was affectionate, talkative, always touching my shoulder when he walked past, always kissing my forehead like it was punctuation. We dated for 2 years before he moved in. 8 months ago, he brought over boxes of clothes, toiletries, a small dresser, and that one plastic bin everyone has filled with tangled cords and old chargers. He set his things in my space, and I remember thinking, this is what building a life looks like. Not fireworks, not grand gestures, just someone folding their shirts into your drawers like they belong there. The wedding was planned for next spring. Save the dates had already gone out. Venue deposit paid. A color scheme chosen. Ethan had his suit picked out and hanging in a garment bag like a promise. He'd even joked about how he was going to cry the second he saw me walk down the aisle. I believed him. The finances were simple, too. At least I thought they were. Ethan didn't pay rent. That was something we agreed on early, because I made significantly more than he did. He was around $42,000 a year, and my salary was the reason I'd been able to pay off a house before I was 30. He covered groceries and some utilities. I covered the mortgage, which wasn't a mortgage anymore, just property taxes, insurance, and any big expenses that came with owning a home. It felt fair. It felt like teamwork. And the scariest part is, I can admit now that I liked how it looked from the outside. Like we were stable. Like we were the couple people pointed at and said, they've got it figured out. Then, 3 weeks ago, Ethan started acting weird. Not dramatic weird, not caught cheating weird. Just quiet weird. Phone calls that happened in the hallway with his voice lowered to a murmur. Texts he'd angle away from me. Conversations that stopped when I walked into the room, like my presence turned the air brittle. The first time I brushed it off. The second time I asked, everything okay? He smiled too fast and said, it's fine, I'm just planning something. What kind of something? His eyes did this little sparkle thing that used to melt me. A surprise. And then he kissed me, like that answer was supposed to be enough. I let it be enough, because my birthday was next month, because it was close to our anniversary, because I wanted to be the kind of woman who trusted her partner instead of interrogating him like a suspect. But my gut didn't relax. It stayed tight, like a fist I couldn't unclench. Last Tuesday, I came home from work around 6 p.m. Normal day, normal traffic, normal exhaustion. I turned onto my street and saw a U-Haul truck parked along the curb. For a second, it didn't register as anything but neighborhood noise. Someone moving, someone helping a friend. My brain didn't attach it to me. Then I pulled into my driveway, and I noticed my front door wasn't fully closed. Not wide open, just not latched. A thin slice of darkness inside. I remember that detail because my hand paused on the steering wheel and a slow, cold thought slid under my ribs. That's wrong. I walked up to the door, keys in my hand, and pushed it open. And there were people in my living room. 5 of them. 5 strangers occupying my space, like I'd walked into the wrong house. An older couple sat on my couch, his arm draped across the back like he'd been there for years. A guy in his early 20s lounged in my recliner, head down, thumbs moving on his phone like he was waiting for pizza. 2 teenage girls stood by my fireplace, holding their phones up, taking selfies and adjusting their hair like my living room was a backdrop for their content. Boxes were stacked near the hallway. A lamp I didn't recognize sat on my end table. And over my mantel, over the place where I'd had a framed photo of me and Ethan, someone had hung a tacky decorative sign that said, family is everything. I didn't even breathe at first. It was like my lungs were waiting for my brain to explain what I was seeing. Before I could speak, Ethan came rushing out of the kitchen like a host welcoming guests, his face bright, excited, almost proud. "Surprise," he said, practically bouncing. "I wanted to wait until everything was set up, but you're early." I stared at him. Then I stared at the strangers again. Then back at Ethan. My voice came out flat. "What is this?" "It's my family," he said, like he was announcing a good thing. "Mom, Dad, my brother, and the twins." As if the names were supposed to calm me. As if labeling them turned them into something I'd agreed to. The woman on my couch stood up immediately, wiping her hands on her jeans like she was preparing for a hug. She had the same chin as Ethan, the same smile, big, confident, assuming. "We're so grateful," she said, arms already opening. "Ethan told us you'd be thrilled to have family around." I stepped back before she could touch me, not because I'm rude, because my body understood something my mind was still catching up to. "This is an invasion." Ethan's smile flickered for half a second, then returned, brighter, too bright. "They're moving in," he said. "They lost their rental. Landlord sold the building. And I knew we had all this space, and, Madeline, this way we can all be together." "Moving in," I repeated. I heard my own voice like it belonged to someone else. "Yes," Ethan said quickly. "Isn't it amazing? Just for a bit, until they get back on their feet." The man who I assumed was his father stepped forward. Big guy, weathered face, the kind of presence that takes up a room without asking permission. "Now hold on," he said, and the way he said it, son almost on his tongue, told me he was used to being listened to. "We're family. Family helps family. You've got all this space, and we need somewhere to land for a while. Few months, maybe a year." A year. The word rang in my head like a dropped pan. 5 extra people. A year. In the house I'd spent a decade buying with my own discipline and sacrifice. I looked at Ethan. "You moved 5 people into my house without asking me." His face twitched. Something annoyed, something defensive trying to surface. "I wanted it to be a surprise," he said, softer now, like he was explaining to a child. "I knew you'd say yes, so I just—" "You knew I'd say yes," I repeated, and my voice sharpened without my permission. "To 5 people moving into my home permanently?" "It's our home," Ethan said. And there it was, the first real crack. The first moment I heard the entitlement hidden under the sweetness. "We're getting married," he continued, like that was a contract he could cash in early. "What's yours is ours." I swallowed. My heart didn't race. It went cold. "We're not married yet," I said, each word slow and clean. "And this house is solely in my name, which you know." Ethan's mother made a small, offended sound, like I'd insulted her cooking. His brother in the recliner sat up, finally interested. "Dude," his brother said, smirking at Ethan. "She's really doing this right now?" Ethan moved closer, lowering his voice. "Madeline, please, don't embarrass them." I stared at him. The audacity of that sentence. Don't embarrass them, while I was standing in my own doorway, being ambushed in my own house. My hand moved to my pocket. I pulled out my phone. Ethan's fingers snapped around my wrist. "What are you doing?" My eyes stayed on his, calling the police. His mother gasped, loud and theatrical. "What?" she cried, like I'd slapped her. Ethan tightened his grip. "Madeline, stop. This is a misunderstanding." I looked at the 5 strangers again. At the boxes. At the U-Haul. At the sign over my mantle like a flag planted in conquered land. Then I looked back at Ethan. "There are 5 people in my house," I said evenly, "that I did not invite." His father took a step forward, voice hardening. "We're not trespassers." Ethan's brother scoffed. "Your girlfriend invited us." "Fiancé," Ethan corrected automatically, like a title could override reality. "And yes," Ethan added quickly, "I live here. I can have guests." I smiled once, not because it was funny, because something in me had just snapped into clarity. "Guests don't move furniture in," I said. "Guests don't unpack boxes. Guests don't show up with a U-Haul." Ethan's face reddened. "Madeline, you have 10 minutes, I said, thumb already hitting the screen, to start loading that truck back up before officers arrive. And in the split second before the call connected, I watched Ethan's expression shift. Not into remorse, not into understanding, but into something sharper. Something that said, "You weren't supposed to fight back." The line rang. Once. Twice. And Ethan whispered, right against my ear, like a threat wrapped in intimacy, "If you do this, you're ending everything." My thumb didn't stop. Because in that moment, I finally understood something that would take me days to fully accept. The relationship had already been ending. I'd just walked in on the proof. The 911 operator picked up on the 3rd ring. 911, what's your emergency? For a second, the question felt surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life, like the calm voice on the line belonged to a different world than the one in my living room, where 5 strangers stood among my furniture as if they'd always been here. Ethan's hand was still locked around my wrist. His grip wasn't bruising, but it was insistent, possessive in a way I'd never seen from him. I didn't look away from his face when I spoke. "This is Madeline Harper," I said into the phone, voice steady by sheer force of will. "I'm at my residence. There are multiple individuals inside my home who were brought in without my consent, and they're refusing to leave." The words sounded cold, clinical. But the truth was, if I let my emotions lead, I'd either scream or collapse, and I refused to do either in front of them. The operator asked for my address. I gave it. Ethan's mother made a choking noise like she couldn't breathe. She pressed her fingers to her chest dramatically. "Oh my God," she said, loud enough for everyone. "She's actually calling the police on us." Ethan hissed, "Madeline, stop, please. This is my family." I finally turned my head slightly, just enough to speak without the operator hearing. "Let go of my wrist." "Not until you hang up." "Ethan," I said quietly, "let go." His eyes flicked to the operator's voice coming from my phone, then back to me. He didn't release me, but his grip loosened a fraction, like he realized how bad it would look if officers arrived and saw him physically restraining me. His father stepped forward, shoulders squared like he'd been born for confrontation. "Ma'am," he said toward my phone, projecting as if the operator could see him, "this is a family misunderstanding. Nobody's trespassing." Ethan's brother laughed under his breath and muttered, "This is insane," like I was the unreasonable one. The twins were already filming. One held her phone upright, narrating in a whisper to her followers like she was covering a celebrity scandal. "Guys," she said, eyes wide, "she's calling the cops on our parents." I tried not to look at them, because if I did, I might do something impulsive. I might grab the phone, smash it, and scream until my throat bled. Instead, I stared at the sign over my mantel. "Family is everything." Someone had hung that there in my house like a verdict. It wasn't decor, it was a claim. The operator asked, "Are there any weapons involved? Is anyone threatening you?" I took a slow breath. "No weapons," I said, "but they're refusing to leave, and I want an officer here to remove them if necessary." Ethan's mother's face twisted. "Refusing to leave? We just got here." "You unpack boxes," I said without looking at her. "We're guests," Ethan insisted, voice tight, aiming for reasonable. "You're overreacting." I finally faced him fully. The calm in my voice was not kindness, it was containment. "Guests don't need a U-Haul." His smile, the one he'd walked into my kitchen with, the one that had said surprise like we were playing some cute couple game, was gone now. In its place was irritation, like I'd violated an agreement he thought we had. An agreement I didn't remember signing. Ethan leaned closer, lowering his voice again, trying to keep his family from hearing the panic in it. "Madeline," he said, "you're humiliating me." That sentence did something to me. Not because it hurt, because it clarified. Humiliating him mattered more than asking me, than respecting my home, than treating me like a partner with agency. Humiliating him mattered more than what he'd done. The operator said, "Officers are being dispatched now. Stay on the line with me." Ethan's father's jaw flexed. He took another step, looming. "You're not seriously doing this," he said. I met his eyes. "I am." His voice dropped, dangerous and low, over a misunderstanding. I didn't blink. Moving 5 people into someone's home without their knowledge or consent is not a misunderstanding. It's a violation. Ethan's mother started crying then. Fast, sharp sobs, like she'd practiced them. "We lost our rental," she wailed. "We have nowhere to go." Ethan cut in, frantic now, trying to patch the scene back into something sympathetic. "They have nowhere else, Madeline. I didn't want to stress you out. I knew you'd say yes if you saw them." I knew you'd say yes. Those words hit me like a slap I'd been too slow to feel earlier. You don't surprise someone with a decision that costs them peace, space, and control. You surprise them with flowers, with a cake, with tickets, not with a permanent rewrite of their life. "I knew you'd say no if I asked," Ethan said next. Too quiet, almost accidental. And there it was, the confession he didn't realize he'd just made. He knew I'd say no, so he didn't ask. He chose ambush instead. Something in me went still, not numb, sharp. "Say that again," I said softly. Ethan froze. His brother snorted. "Don't play word games." I stepped away from Ethan's grip completely, phone still at my ear. "No," I said, voice louder now. "I want him to say it again." "Ethan, did you not ask me because you knew I'd say no?" His eyes flicked to his family, to the twins' phones filming, to the sign, to me. He tried to smile like we were misunderstanding each other. "Madeline, come on." "Answer the question." His mother whispered, "Ethan." His father's face hardened, Ethan exhaled like I was forcing him into cruelty. Yes, he said. I knew you'd say no. That's why I made it a surprise. I stared at him for a beat too long, because the part of me that loved him wanted to search for another meaning. But there wasn't one. He'd just admitted he'd done it behind my back on purpose, and he'd called that love. The operator told me officers were close. The next 10 minutes were chaos. Ethan's mother sobbed louder, turning the living room into a theater stage. His father paced like a caged animal, muttering about how this was disrespect. His brother took a phone call, someone on speaker, whispering about tenant laws, like he'd suddenly become a legal expert. The twins filmed everything, swapping angles, whispering captions. Ethan tried to talk to me privately, stepping closer again. Madeline, he said, please, just hang up. We can talk. We can fix this. I panicked. You didn't panic, I said quietly, not looking at him. You planned. I was trying to help them. At my expense, I said. We're supposed to be a team. Teams discuss things, I said. They don't ambush each other. His eyes glistened like he could summon tears on command if he needed them. I thought you loved me. I felt something deep in my chest twist, not from guilt, from grief. Because the Ethan I loved wouldn't have done this. And the Ethan in front of me was banking on that love to make me fold. Headlights flashed through my window. 2 officers stepped onto my porch. I saw their silhouettes through the glass. Ethan's entire body tensed. His mother's sobs stuttered into shocked silence. The twins angled their phones toward the door like it was the finale of a series. I opened the door before the officers could knock. The night air hit my face like reality. Ma'am, one officer said, calm, professional. You called about unauthorized occupants? Yes, I said. I'm the homeowner. The officers stepped inside, scanning the room. Their eyes landed on the boxes, the sign, the U-Haul keys visible on the table. Okay, the officer said. Who lives here? I do, I said. Ethan jumped in fast. We both do. I'm her fiancé. I live here too. And do you own the property? The officer asked. Ethan hesitated. No, but... Ma'am, the officer turned back to me. Do you have proof of ownership? I do. My voice didn't shake. Give me 1 minute. I walked to my home office, the room I'd painted myself, the room I'd set up with my monitors and my neat filing cabinet, the room that had always been my safe corner. I opened the drawer I kept important documents in, not because I expected betrayal, because I'm the kind of person who prepares. I pulled out a copy of the deed. My name, only my name. I handed it to the officer. He read it, nodded, and looked at Ethan. Sir, you are not listed as an owner. Are these individuals listed on any lease agreement? There's no lease, Ethan said, voice rising. We're getting married. That's not a legal tenancy, the officer said, neutral but firm. Ethan's mother burst out, But we're family! The officer turned to her. Ma'am, the homeowner is asking you to leave. His father stepped forward, trying to cut the officer off with sheer presence. This is a family matter, officer, he said. You don't need to be involved. The second officer, quiet until now, spoke, voice flat. Sir, the property owner has asked you to leave. If you don't comply, we'll have to remove you. The word remove made Ethan's mother start wailing again, like someone had hit a switch. Thrown out like garbage, she cried. After everything. I watched Ethan's face. He wasn't embarrassed. He was angry. At me, like I'd broken the script he wrote in his head. Loading the U-Haul took nearly 2 hours. The officers stayed the entire time, which I appreciated more than I could explain, because I could feel how quickly this could have turned physical, how quickly someone like Ethan's father could have decided intimidation wasn't enough. I sat on the porch the whole time. I didn't help. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just watched my life get rearranged back into place, one box at a time, by people who never should have been there. Ethan kept trying to talk to me, hovering near the steps like a man waiting for forgiveness. Madeline, he whispered at one point, please, we can come back from this. I didn't look at him, because if I did, I might remember the version of him I fell for, and I couldn't afford that weakness right then. When the last box was finally loaded and the U-Haul door slammed shut, one officer hung back near my porch. You okay? He asked quietly. I stared out at the street, where Ethan's family clustered like a storm cloud. I swallowed, processing. He nodded like he'd seen this kind of thing before. Smart move calling, he said. A lot of people try to handle it themselves, and it escalates. Thank you, I said. He gave me a final nod and walked away. Ethan was the last one left. He stood by his car, keys in hand, looking at me like I'd committed a crime. I can't believe you're throwing away 2 years over this, he said. My voice was calm, almost gentle. I'm not the one who threw it away. His eyes narrowed. Where am I supposed to go? I glanced toward the U-Haul. Your family has a truck full of your choices, I said. Figure it out together. His mouth opened like he wanted to say something devastating. Then he stopped, jaw tight, and hissed, "You're heartless." I watched him get into his car and drive away. When the street was finally empty again, I walked back inside. The living room looked wrong, like the air had been contaminated. My hands went to the mantel. I ripped down that family is everything sign. The hook on the back scratched my wall. I didn't care. I carried it straight to the trash and dropped it in like it was evidence. Then I sat in the quiet, my quiet, and let the feelings come in waves. The shock, the anger, the betrayal. And so much relief it scared me, because one thought kept echoing louder than anything else. If Ethan was willing to do this before we were married, what would he feel entitled to after? I stared at the dark window, seeing my own reflection. And I said it out loud, barely a whisper, but final. No, not to his family, not to his manipulation, not to the version of my future where my home wasn't mine anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "We need to talk." I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back, "No, the wedding is off." And as soon as I hit send, I knew this wasn't over. It was just beginning. I woke up the next morning to my phone vibrating itself off the nightstand. Not ringing, buzzing, over and over again. Missed calls, text notifications, stacking so fast they blurred into each other. My screen lit up with names I didn't recognize and numbers I didn't have saved. Ethan's mother, Ethan's father, Ethan's brother, even one of the twins. I stared at the screen for a long moment, my head still heavy with the kind of exhaustion that settles in after adrenaline burns out. The house was quiet again, blessedly, eerily quiet. But my nervous system hadn't caught up yet. I opened one text by accident. "How could you do this to us? You humiliated our family. We thought you were a good woman." Another came in immediately after. "My sister is crying nonstop because of you. Hope you're proud." That one was from a number I didn't have saved, but I didn't need to guess who it was. I blocked the number, then the next, then the next. I blocked everyone except Ethan. Not because I wanted to talk, because I wanted logistics in writing. He still had things in my house. Clothes in my closet, toiletries in my bathroom, a desk chair in my office that he'd insisted was better for posture. I wasn't trying to steal his belongings. I just wanted them gone without turning my front lawn into another performance. Around noon, I finally showered, dressed, and sat down at my desk to work from home. I needed the normalcy, the code, the structure. Something that reminded me I was still myself outside of the chaos. I'd been working for about 20 minutes when I felt it. That sensation you get when someone is watching you. I looked up. Ethan stood in my office doorway. No knock, no warning. Just there. My stomach dropped. "How did you get in?" I asked, already knowing the answer. He held up his keys, the ones I hadn't thought to take yet. "I live here." "You did," I corrected, my voice sharp. "You don't anymore." "That's not your decision." I stood up slowly. "It literally is. This is my house." He walked in like he hadn't heard me, pulled out my guest chair, and sat down across from my desk like this was a scheduled meeting. "We need to talk," he said. "You should have knocked," he scoffed. "Don't start with that." I felt anger rise, hot and fast, but I forced it down. This wasn't a fight, it was a boundary. "You can't just walk in anymore," I said. "You don't live here." Ethan leaned back, crossing his arms, adopting a tone I recognized instantly. The reasonable one. "Look," he said, "I've had time to think, and I can admit I overreacted." My eyebrows shot up. "You overreacted?" "Yes," he said quickly, seizing the momentum. "Moving them in without telling you was wrong. I see that now." I waited. He didn't like that I wasn't jumping in. "But," he continued, "you overreacted too. Calling the police, canceling the wedding, that was extreme." I laughed once, a short humorless sound. "Is it?" "Yes," he said immediately. "Normal couples fight and work through things. They don't throw away 2 years over one mistake." "One mistake," I repeated. I leaned back against my desk, crossing my arms now. "You didn't forget to tell me you invited someone over for dinner," I said. "You arranged a U-Haul. You coordinated schedules. You let them unpack. You let them hang decorations. That wasn't a mistake, Ethan. That was a plan." He opened his mouth. I kept going. "A plan you admitted you didn't tell me about because you knew I'd say no." His jaw tightened. I was trying to help my family. "At my expense," I said, "without my consent. We're supposed to be a team." "And teams don't ambush each other," I shot back. His shoulders slumped then, and I watched the shift happen in real time. The strategy change. His eyes filled. His voice softened. His hands dropped to his knees like he was suddenly fragile. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry. My parents were desperate. They had nowhere to go. I panicked. You didn't panic, I said quietly. You decided. Tears spilled over now, and if this had happened a month ago, they would have destroyed me. Now they felt like a tool. Please, he said, can we just start over? I didn't answer that. I asked something else instead. Where are they now? He blinked. What? Your family, I said. Where are they staying? He hesitated. A motel. I nodded slowly. So they found a solution without using my house. It's temporary, he said quickly. They can't afford it long term. That's not my problem. I stood up straight, signaling the conversation was over. You need to schedule a time to get your belongings, I said. Not today, this weekend. I'll be here. His face hardened. You're kicking me out just like that? You stopped living here the moment you decided my home was yours to give away. He stood abruptly, chair legs scraping. You're cold, he snapped. Heartless. This is the worst mistake of your life. I met his gaze. No, that was almost marrying you. He left without another word, slamming the door behind him. I changed the locks that afternoon. Day 3 is when the circus came to my front door. At 7 a.m., someone started pounding like they were trying to break it down. Not knocking, pounding. I rolled over, heart racing, grabbed my phone, and opened the Ring app. Ethan's father stood on my porch, red-faced, sweating, jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. I watched him for a full 2 minutes. Then I opened the door. He didn't wait for an invitation. You and I are going to have a conversation, he said, stepping forward. No, I said, staying planted in the doorway. We're not. You embarrassed my family, he snapped. You called the cops on us like we were criminals. You were trespassing. We were invited by someone who didn't have the authority to invite you, I said calmly. She lived here. Not anymore, I said. And even when he didn't own the property. You can't move people into someone else's house without their consent. That's basic tenancy law. He sneered. I don't care about your laws. I care about my son, who's heartbroken because of you. Your son is heartbroken because his plan to manipulate me failed. He stepped closer, chest puffed out, trying to loom. You're going to fix this. I didn't raise my voice. I'm going to close my door now, I said. If you come back, I'm calling the police again. If you threaten me, I'll file for a restraining order. He stared at me like he couldn't believe a woman was speaking to him that way. Then he muttered something under his breath and stomped back to his truck. Day 4, I answered a call I shouldn't have. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I picked up. It was Ethan's mother. I just want you to know what you've done to this family, she said immediately. I sighed. Ma'am. My husband hasn't slept in 3 days, she continued. My son is talking about finding you and teaching you respect. My daughters are traumatized, and my baby boy cries himself to sleep every night because of you. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry you're going through this, I said. But your son made a choice. He made a choice to include you in our family, she snapped. He made a choice to give away something that wasn't his to give. It's just a house, she cried. We're talking about people. It's my house, I said. The one I spent 10 years paying off. And those people, your family, are your responsibility, not mine. You're a selfish woman, she spat. I thank God every day he found out before marrying you. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. We agree on something, I said, and I hung up. That night, my phone stayed silent. The calm felt fake, like the pause before another hit. I went to bed knowing one thing for certain. They weren't done trying to punish me, and I wasn't done standing my ground. Day 5, the envelope arrived. It wasn't dramatic. No process server, no knock at the door, just a thick, cream-colored envelope tucked neatly into my mailbox like it belonged there. The return address was a law firm. I stood in my driveway staring at it longer than necessary, keys still in my hand, pulse slow but heavy. Some part of me had expected this, almost welcomed it, because at least lawyers don't pretend. They don't call manipulation love. I opened it at my kitchen counter. 4 demands, typed cleanly, unemotionally, like what they were asking for wasn't absurd. Compensation for emotional distress caused by the public humiliation of involving law enforcement. Reimbursement of financial contributions made during the relationship, totaling approximately $8,000. A reasonable transition period, defined as 30 days, during which Ethan would be allowed to move back into the home. Payment for wedding-related expenses, including $2,400 for his suit, which he claimed was non-refundable. I laughed. Not a cute laugh, not a surprise one. A loud, incredulous laugh that echoed off my cabinets and made me put the letter down just so I could breathe. I didn't panic. Because I'd already called my own lawyer. Right after the U-Haul incident, while Ethan's family was still loading boxes under police supervision, I'd stepped inside, shut my office door, and made the call. Not because I'm vengeful, but because I'm not naive. I scanned the letter and emailed it over. His reply came less than an hour later. "This is nonsense." That was the first line. He went on. Ethan had no tenant rights. He was never on the deed, never on a lease, never paid rent. There is no common law marriage in this state. Any money he contributed during the relationship was considered shared living expenses or gifts unless he could prove otherwise, which he couldn't. The emotional distress claim was laughable. The wedding suit? His problem. As for the 30-day move-back request? Absolutely not. If they push this further, we'll counter for legal fees and harassment. I felt something loosen in my chest reading that. Not victory. Validation. That night, I boxed up Ethan's belongings. Every shirt, every shoe, every half-used bottle of cologne that had started to smell like something sour to me. I packed carefully, not because I cared about him, but because I wanted nothing he could twist later. I stacked everything neatly in the garage. Then I sent one final text. "Your belongings are boxed and in the garage. You have until Sunday at 5 p.m. to pick them up. After that, they'll be donated." His reply came instantly. "You're a monster." 10 minutes later, "Fine, I'll be there Saturday." I asked a friend to come over. Not because I thought Ethan would hurt me, because I didn't trust his family not to try something. Saturday arrived like a storm cloud. Ethan pulled up with his brother and his father in a rented pickup truck. No apology, no acknowledgement, just tension thick enough to choke on. My friend sat quietly at the kitchen table, visible but uninvolved. Ethan avoided my eyes completely. Instead, he narrated his bitterness out loud while loading boxes. "Can't believe I wasted 2 years on this. Some people just don't understand family. Hope she enjoys being alone forever." I didn't respond. I just pointed to the garage and went back inside. About halfway through, Ethan's phone rang. His mother. She was on speaker. I could hear her voice echoing through the open garage. Apparently, the motel had gotten too expensive. They were splitting between a storage unit and Ethan's brother's one-bedroom apartment now. One bedroom. Parents, Ethan, his brother, 2 teenage sisters. I didn't smile, but I did feel something like balance return to the universe. When they were almost done, Ethan came to the front door. I opened it, but didn't invite him in. "I need something," he said. "What?" "My engagement ring." I stared at him. Then I almost laughed again. "That's not how it works," I said. "Yes, it is," he snapped. "I gave you that ring contingent on marriage. We're not getting married. It reverts to me." "That's the law," I said calmly, "in this state." His face flushed red. "You're really going to nickel and dime me over a ring? You're really going to demand a ring after trying to move 5 people into my house without asking?" He looked at me like he wanted to say something unforgivable. Instead, he muttered, "I can't believe I ever loved you." I met his eyes. "I can't believe I almost married you." They finished loading and left without another word. The lawyer situation wrapped up faster than I expected. Their attorney sent one more letter claiming Ethan had tenant rights. My lawyer responded once, firmly. Silence followed. Then, because apparently humiliation wasn't enough, they tried one last thing. A week later, a local news station called. The reporter said she was working on a story about a woman who'd thrown out her fiancé's homeless family in front of police officers. I told her I'd be happy to comment. I told her everything. How I came home to strangers in my house, how Ethan admitted he did it because he knew I'd say no, how I called the police only after they refused to leave. There was a long pause on the line. "She knew you'd say no?" the reporter asked. "Her exact words," I said. The story never aired. Turns out, woman secretly moves family into fiancé's house isn't the viral fairy tale they'd hoped for. The twins posted footage anyway. The comments weren't kind. Watching entitlement on camera tends to kill sympathy fast. By the end of that week, my house was quiet again. Locks changed, security upgraded. The ring sold, $3,200. I used part of it to install better cameras. The rest? I booked a vacation. Because the thing no one tells you is this. Freedom sometimes costs deposits, attorneys, and heartbreak. But it's still cheaper than staying. Tomorrow I'll tell you how it finally ended. How I closed the door for good. And why I don't regret a single step. The house sounded different once everything was over. Not emptier, cleaner. The kind of quiet that doesn't buzz with tension or anticipation. The kind that doesn't feel like it's holding its breath, waiting for the next argument, the next compromise, the next time you're supposed to give a little more of yourself away to keep the peace. Sunday night, after Ethan's boxes were gone and the garage was finally mine again, I sat on the floor of my living room with my back against the couch and let the silence settle. No voices. No accusations. No, we need to talk. Just me. And the hum of the refrigerator, and the low click of the new security system arming itself like a promise. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I thought I would, at least a little, for the 2 years, for the future I'd pictured, for the wedding that would never happen. But the tears never came. Instead, I felt clear. That clarity lasted exactly 3 days. That's when I heard through a mutual friend what Ethan had been telling people, that I'd abandoned him over a misunderstanding, that I was cold, controlling, too focused on money, that I'd been looking for an excuse to get out of the wedding, that I never really loved him. I let those words sit with me before deciding how much power they deserved. Not much, it turned out, because here's the thing about people who rewrite the ending. They usually ignore the middle. They skip over the part where he planned everything behind my back, the part where he admitted he knew I'd say no, the part where 5 people moved into my house without my consent, the part where he expected love to mean compliance. I didn't correct the narrative publicly. I didn't defend myself online. I didn't reach out to mutual friends to explain. I didn't need to. The people who mattered already knew me. And the ones who didn't, they were never really mine to begin with. About 2 weeks later, I ran into the reporter again. By coincidence, at a coffee shop near my office. She recognized me immediately. "Just wanted you to know," she said quietly. "Your instincts were right. That story would have turned ugly fast." I nodded. I figured. She hesitated, then added, "You handled it well." That meant more to me than I expected. I also heard, through the same grapevine, that Ethan's living situation wasn't going well. The one-bedroom apartment was chaos. His parents argued constantly. His sisters complained nonstop. His brother was threatening to break the lease. Apparently, someone had taken over the pull-out couch he'd been sleeping on, and he was now rotating between floors. It wasn't my problem. But I won't pretend it didn't feel like confirmation. I lost money, sure. The venue deposit, non-refundable. A few other planning costs I couldn't recoup. Time, emotional energy, hope. But I kept something far more valuable. My autonomy. My home. My ability to say no without being punished for it. One night, while packing for the vacation I'd booked, just a quiet solo trip somewhere warm, I found the folder with our old wedding notes tucked into a drawer I'd forgotten about. Guest lists, color swatches, a seating chart draft. I flipped through it once. Then I shredded it. Not in anger, in closure. Here's what I learned. What I wish someone had told me sooner. When someone makes massive decisions about your life without your input because they know you'll disagree, that isn't love. That isn't partnership. That's control dressed up as good intentions. Ethan didn't surprise me with a party. He surprised me with a fundamental violation of trust. And when I refused to play along, I became the villain in his story. I'm okay with that. Because the truth is, I didn't lose a fiancé. I lost an illusion. The man I thought I was going to marry wouldn't have done what he did. So I wasn't grieving him. I was grieving a version of the future that never actually existed. And that's a strange kind of grief, but it's survivable. Tonight, I'm sitting on my couch again. Lights low, windows open, the house breathing with me instead of against me. I still own it. I still earned it. And no one lives here unless I invite them. Clearly, explicitly, enthusiastically. Some people think I went too far. Calling the cops, ending the engagement on the spot, refusing to negotiate my boundaries. But here's the truth they don't like. The relationship ended the moment he decided my home wasn't mine anymore. Everything after that was just paperwork. I made my choice. I'd make it again.